What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video, and welcome to your stimulus package update and daily news report for Friday, March 11th. This is Friday, March 11th, 2022. This is a 2-year anniversary from when the World Health Organization first said that we were in a global pandemic, and I will address that later on in this video. But first, let's talk about how we are starting to see lawmakers are talking about more relief to the American people, right? And it's mainly because of gas prices. That's really where it's all starting. Now, we know that there's potentially going to be more for the American people, but when's it coming? I will address that in today's video. We're also going to discuss the Senate and how they passed the $1.5 trillion government spending bill as well. So a lot of stuff has happened this week, but let's address what is currently going on. Now, the average gallon of gas here in the United States, you may know this, but you may not. The current average is $4.33 per gallon. Now, this is actually good. And I want to explain why this is good, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, it just keeps increasing. It's so high. I understand that. But what we saw is over the past day, just from yesterday, okay, it was $4.31. I think it was like 431.8 or something like that. And today, it only went up 1.3 cents. That's it. So over the past 7 days, we've actually seen gas prices go up about 49 cents. That's a pretty substantial increase. So about 7 cents on average per day. So this slowdown that went from 7 cents all the way to 1.3 cents, this is good. This is considered a good sign because the slowdown is happening. The gas price increases are not so substantial each day. So that's actually pretty good news. I know you got to look through the bad stuff first, but this is actually considered good news. Now, something else that many states are currently trying to do is they're trying to pass, and try to, push for lower costs to the consumers, right? Pretty much for gas. Now, what they're trying to do is pass legislation to suspend the state gas tax. Now, we know that Florida, they were the first ones to even consider this, and they considered it last year. Well, they're still working on it and still part of the plan. Washington State, they attempted to do this, but legislation failed. Georgia's governor, he's trying to implement the gas tax holiday as well, and the plan is to get this in very soon. We know Maryland, their governor plans to provide a 30-day gas tax as well, which is actually going to save the consumers about 37 cents per gallon. So that's actually pretty big as well. And in Pennsylvania, they want to impose the gas tax holiday as well, as do other states. The problem is they're trying to do it at a very difficult time. Because one of the biggest issues right now that many are facing is the gas tax holiday, or really for this gas tax holiday, is that lawmakers are going to be very hesitant to pass it for really a couple of reasons. The first one that a lot of people don't realize is that the party in control is going to benefit. So all the other lawmakers, right? If you're not part of the main party, they are not going to want to pass this because guess what? In an election year, that's going to benefit the party that is in control. And other lawmakers don't want to do that. Secondly, passing a gas tax holiday would be very good. It's going to really help out the American people once it's instated, once it's imposed. But once it's reinstated, that's the issue. This would be a crushing blow to the American people. So if this gas tax holiday only goes for 30 days, you get 30 days of relief, then all of a sudden, bam, there it is. Huge jump, 37-cent increase, right? And that's why the federal government has really considered this, but at the same time, they're pushing back against it because of what would happen once that gas tax gets reinstated back on. That would be devastating to the American people. Now, right now, getting more relief to the American people is seen as a key component. That's something that they want to do. Now, many lawmakers have stated that with rising wages, it makes up for the rise in inflation. But this is something I want to just touch on because that's not technically true. There actually are a couple issues with this. mainly the fact that the lowest income earners are getting most of the wage increases, and that's great. I'm glad the lower income earners are getting increases in their wages to help them make it through this tough time, through this, the end of the pandemic, the high inflation, high gas prices, and all that stuff. But this also leaves out the middle class because they aren't getting the wage increases that others are, and that really hurts them. The other issue is that when you look at the real average hourly earnings, there's actually a disconnect here. There's actually been a decrease of about $1 since the beginning of 2021 to now. Because with rising inflation, wages aren't keeping up. So inflation is actually outpacing wage increases. And that is very, very difficult for people to make it through this without seeing a huge issue with their bank accounts, with their savings accounts, with investments, right? People are starting to pull money out. But again, we are seeing a lot of people, we have substantial wealth. It's just tied into assets like some stocks and real estate and things like that. So it's interesting seeing where things are actually going. Now, when we talk about relief, and I addressed this yesterday, okay? Yesterday I talked about how Democrats came up with a plan to actually lower the cost for the American people when it comes to gas. Now again, Democrats are trying to provide some relief, but they have to be very creative here as to how they do this. And what they have decided to do is put out a proposal that would actually tax large oil companies like Exxon and Shell and Chevron. But they would charge these large oil companies a 50% tax. Now, the good thing about this is they're charging this money on the excess revenue. Okay, so between what the average price per gallon was, or the average price per barrel was, I believe between 2015 and 2019, and then whatever that was versus what it is today, they're going to tax them 50% on that gain. So it's going to help the American people. Now, the proposal would actually send quarterly checks to the American people, and this would be very beneficial, but the problem is it's going to raise taxes, and that's something that the GOP has said that they will not go for. So the talks of getting this into another bill has been brought up by multiple people, but here's the issue. Some say that this will turn into a problem because one of the problems that Senator Joe Manchin has had all along, he's made it very clear that any additional benefits must also be accompanied with a reduction of the national deficit. So that would be the issues right now. Let's say the price per barrel comes out to $120 profit, right? Here's what you need to understand. If it's $120, okay, this is going to be broken up into four. So that these companies are going to have to pay 50%, which would be $60, okay? $60 per barrel. But this is going to be broken up into four payments. So 4 times $60 would be $240 a year. That would be for an individual. Well, if you factor in the cost to send out the checks, that's probably going to bring it down a little bit. Let's say $220. Okay? But then you factor in, we're going to pay off a little bit of the national deficit. Let's say another $20. Okay, not much. Well, that means per person is going to get $200. That is not a big increase. That's not a big boost to our spending, especially $200 over the course of a year. You get 4 payments. That means you get $50 every quarter. That's not much. And again, I brought this up yesterday, but I'm going to say it again. I don't think this specific proposal will pass. Now, it gets the ball rolling, which is a good thing. But, and again, with our current Congress, it's going to move so slow. But right now, that some experts see a recession risk is actually going up. This is where more and more lawmakers want to provide some relief without actually increasing our national deficit. Even Goldman Sachs, their economists warn of a 35% chance of a recession as they are cutting forecasts. So that's really big news as well. But I think a lot of people are kind of missing this, that there's still a chance of a recession. We can't go deeper and deeper into debt. We can't provide all this additional stimulus to the American people without taking it from somewhere. And that's where Republicans are going to be against it. That's where moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin have already said they would be against it as well. So we'll see what happens there. But we do have some good news from today. This is actually really good news because today it was our deadline, is that we now know that the Senate has passed the $1.5 trillion government spending bill. This is good news. They actually did this last night. This would provide about $13.6 billion to Ukraine for humanitarian efforts. It will provide about $750 billion for defense spending. And we're going to see about $26 billion go to food assistance. But again, there's nothing in here for COVID relief. Now, President Biden is expected to sign this bill later on today, which was going to be great because this would provide funding for the government until the end of September 2022. But at least this does one thing. This gets one of the issues, one of the bills that Congress has been working on for, what is it? We're 5 months, was it 5 months? Yeah, 5 months past the start of our fiscal year. And they're just now getting it done. Again, keep in mind, they've been working on this entire time. They just provided a bill to lawmakers yesterday, gave them about 10 minutes to read it, and then they voted on it. Okay? So they've been working on this thing for months, more than 5 months, probably like 8 to 10 months. They've been working on this bill. Finally, they have the bill, but they only see the bill one day before they actually vote on it. Or actually, the same day they vote on it. How incredible is that? That is so messed up. But at least that got passed. Now, I want to actually get into some COVID news for today. Okay? I'm not going to talk about the Russia and Ukraine conflicts today or right now. We'll talk about them later. But here's what I want to bring up. The White House is now saying that the U.S. will run out of money to provide free COVID tests, free treatments, and free vaccines. And they say all this is going to happen because of the $16 billion that fell out of the omnibus bill. So the expectation is that our COVID response will have to be scaled back. But I think this is very interesting. And what I think is very interesting with this is that the White House stated just a few weeks ago that they had the money, but they wanted the additional 60, I think it was like 20 or 30 billion dollars at that point, but they wanted the additional $16 billion to help fight any future pandemics. Not this current one, not the current situation we're in, any future pandemics. But now they're saying that the missing $16 billion would actually cause free testing and treatments for millions of people to end in April. We're going to see the end of the monoclonal antibodies end in May. And the threat of COVID could come back without additional funding. But again, the White House never said that. They said that they had the money. Now, this is also one of the reasons why Republicans want to see exactly where the money went, because they have no idea. But at the same time, the House does plan to take up a vote, most likely in the coming week or weeks, and they plan to do a standalone bill to address COVID relief. Now, we don't know if this is actually going to pass or not, but we will see. What we do know today, and again, big news, today marks the 2-year anniversary of COVID being declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. Yes, this right here is the remarks from the World Health Organization back on March 11th, 2020. You can read this entire thing. I'm not going to read it, but this is exactly what was said. Now, this is actually pretty big because this is 2 years ago. We are still fighting through this. And according to experts, we are not out of the woods just yet. The United States is actually doing very well, but other countries are still struggling just a little bit. We know many countries don't even have the vaccines that they need, but things are trending in the right direction, which is always great news. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back and share all latest news and updates. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday. And if you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.